hello, greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, wonderful scholars, wherever you are, whenever you are across this vast, marvelous multiverse. Ha ha. Once again, my dear scholars, as you might notice, I am not here. I'm off enjoying myself somewhere across the Somniverse. But I thought I couldn't leave you without some entertainment. So, my dear scholars, I prepared a few pre recorded streams. And of course, we couldn't do one without some reading. I have to drink a little bit of water first. Tonight, my dear scholars, you might have noticed I'm wearing my second outfit. I thought it might be nice to spice up my look. Well, anyway, tonight, my dear scholars, we're going to be reading some selections from a work by Lord Dunsany. You might have noticed that I have read quite a bit of his stories. He's quite good to write, yeah, quite fun to read. um, Tonight's reading, though, will be specifically from one of his collection of books, which was called The Gods of Pegana. Now, The Gods of Pegana is a little bit unusual. It isn't on its own what you would call a straightforward plot or fiction. It's something more similar to what the Silmarillion would be later written by J.R.R. Tolkien, which is it's a written mythology that Dunsany had come up with, and it was at the time it was written, it was a huge thing. He wrote several books about Pangaea. Um, but this one is a collection of the origin stories of Pangaea, how their gods came to be, and all sorts of manner of things. I thought that might be a little fun reading to do. So then, my dear scholars, let's begin our reading and enter the mystical world of Pangaea. And as of course, I will be actually avoiding some sections because some parts haven't aged well, and I don't want to offend anyone. All right then. So then, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking, dim the lights if you wish, and let us begin our reading of The Gods of Pangea by Lord Dunsany. Preface. There be islands in the central sea whose waters are bounded by no shore, and where no ships come. This is the faith of their people. Prologue. In the mists before the beginning, fate and chance cast lots to decide whose the game should be. And he that won strode through the mists to Manayud Shusha, and said, Now make gods for me, for I have won the cast, and the game is to be mine. Who it was that won the cast, and whither was fate or whither chance that went through the mists before the beginning to Manayud Shusha, none knoweth. The Gods of Pegana. Before there stood gods upon Olympus, had wrought and rested Manayud Shushaya. There are in Pegana Mund and Shish and Kib and the maker of all small gods, who is Manayud Shushaya. Moreover, we have a faith in rune and slid. And it has been said of old that all things that have been were wrought by the small gods, excepting only Manayud Shushaya, who made the gods, and hath thereafter rested. And none may pray to Manayud Shushaya, but only to the gods whom he hath made. But at the last will Manayud Shushaya forget to rest, and will make again new gods and other worlds, and will destroy the gods whom he hath made. And the gods and the worlds shall depart, and there shall be only Mana Yud Shushaya. Oh, so he has a little bit of a prophecy right there for what the future of Pangada would be. Interesting. Of Skarl the drummer. When Mana Yud Shushaya had made the gods and Skarl made a drum. And be Yeah, I read that wrong. When Mana Yud Shushaya had made the gods and Skarl made a drum, and began to beat upon it that he might drum forever. And then became he and then because he was weary after the making of the gods, and because of the drumming of Skarl, did Mana Yud Shushaya grow drowsy and fall asleep. And there fell a hush upon the gods when they saw that Mana rested, and there was silence on Pegana, save for the drumming of Skarl. Skarl sitteth upon the mist before the feet of Mana Yud Shushaya, above the gods of Pegana, and there he beateth his drum. Some say that the worlds and the suns are but the echoes of the drumming of Skarl, and others say that they be dreams that arise in the mind of Mana, because of the drumming of Skarl, as one may dream whose rest is troubled by sound of song, but none knoweth. For who hath heard the voice of Mana Yud Shushaya, or who hath seen his drummer? Whether the season be winter, or whether it be summer, whether it be morning among the worlds, or whether it be night, Skarl still beateth his drum. For the purposes of the gods are not yet fulfilled. Sometimes the arm of Skarl grows weary, but still he beateth his drum, that the gods may do the work of the gods, and the worlds go on. For if he cease for an instant, then Mana Yud Shushaya will start awake, and there will be worlds nor gods no more. But when at last the arm of Skarl shall cease to beat his drum, silence shall startle Pegana like thunder in a cave, and Mana Yud Shushaya shall cease to rest. Then shall Skarl put his drum upon his back and walk forth into the void beyond the worlds, because it is the end, and the work of Skarl is over. There may arise some other god whom Skarl may serve, or it may be that he shall perish. But to Skarl it shall matter not, for he shall have done the work of Skarl. Of the making of the worlds. When Mana Yud Shushaya had made the gods, there were only the gods, and they sat in the middle of time, for there was as much time before them as behind them, which having no end had neither a beginning. And Pegana was without heat or light or sound, save for the drumming of Skarl. Moreover, Pegana was the middle of all, for there was below Pegana what there was above it, and there lay below it that which lay beyond. Well, that's rather confusing. Then said the gods, making the signs of the gods, and speaking with their hands, lest the silence of Pegana should blush. Then said the gods to one another, speaking with their hands, Let us make worlds to amuse ourselves while Mana rests. Let us make worlds, and life, and death, and colors in the sky. Only let us not break the silence upon Pegana. Then raising their hands, each god according to his sign, they made the worlds, and the suns, and put a light in the houses of the sky. Then said the gods, Let us make one to seek and never to find out concerning the wherefore of the making of the gods. And they made by the lifting of their hands each god according to his sign, the bright one with the flaring tail, to seek from the end of the worlds to the end of them again, to return again after 100 years. Man, when thou seest the comet, know that another seeketh besides thee, nor ever findeth out. Then said the gods, still speaking with their hands, let there be now a watcher to regard. And they made the moon with his face wrinkled with many mountains, and worn with 1,000 valleys, to regard with pale eyes the games of the small gods, and to watch thereout the resting time of Manayud Shashaya, to watch, to regard all things, and be silent. Then said the gods, let us make one to rest, one not to move among the moving, one not to seek like the comet, nor to go round like the worlds, to rest while Mana rests. And they made the star of the abiding and set it in the north. Man, when thou seest the star of the abiding to the north, know that one rests as doth Mana Yujashaya, and know that somewhere among the worlds is rest. Oh, this is so clever. He's covering all the bases. Lastly, the gods said, we have made worlds, and suns, and one to seek, and another to regard. Let us now make one to wonder. And they made earth to wonder, each god by the uplifting of his hand according to his sign. And earth was. He really is coming up with a really, really thorough mythology, I think. Very symbolic. I mean, you have the star of the abiding, which obviously is Polaris, or whatever star is going to take its place when it inevitably drifts out of position, and the moon and the comets. It's interesting. Of the game of the gods. 1,000,000 years passed over the first game of the gods, and Manayud Shashaya still rested, still in the middle of time, and the gods still played with worlds. The moon regarded, and the bright ones sought, and returned again to his seeking. Then Kib grew weary of the first game of the gods, and raised his hands in Pegana, making the sign of Kib, and earth became covered with beasts for Kib to play with. And Kib played with beasts. And the other gods said to one another, speaking with their hands, what is it that Kib has done? And they said to Kib, what are these things that move upon the earth, yet move not in circles like the worlds, that regard like the moon, and yet they do not shine? And Kib said, this is life. But the gods said to one another, if Kib has thus made beasts, he will in time make men, and will endanger the secret of the gods. And Mun was jealous of the work of Kib, and sent down death among the beasts, but could not stamp them out. 1,000,000 years passed over the second game of the gods, and still it was the middle of time. And Kib grew weary of the second game, and raised his hand in the middle of all, making the sign of Kib, and made men. Out of beasts he made them, and earth was covered with men. Then the gods feared greatly for the secret of the gods, and set a veil between man and his ignorance, that he might not understand. And Mun was busy among men. But when the other gods saw Kib playing his new game, they came and played it too, and thus they will play until Mana arises to rebuke them, saying, what do ye playing with worlds and sun and men and life and death? And they shall be ashamed of their playing in the hour of the laughter of Manayud Shashaya. It was Kib who first broke the silence of Pegana by speaking with his mouth like a man, and all the other gods were angry with Kib that he had spoken with his mouth, and there was no longer silence in Pegana or the worlds? You know, I thought, though, it said earlier that the reason Mana was going to wake up was because Scarl would stop drumming after he got weary. But according to this one, he's going to awaken to rebuke the other gods. So I'm wondering if Dunsany recognized that a lot of mythology around the world is not, it's not usually absolutely consistent. So I'm wondering if he wrote in purposeful inconsistencies, to match that concept. I'm going to need so much water by the end of this. I think this is supposed to be chant, but they spell chaunt. The chaunt of the gods. Oh no, it is chaunt. What is a chaunt? I, I, I have no idea what that means. The chaunt of the gods. There came the voice of the gods, singing the chaunt of the gods, singing, "We are the gods, we are the little games of Manayu Cheshire, that hath played and hath forgotten. Manayu Cheshire hath made us, and we made the worlds and the suns. And we play with the worlds and the suns and life and death until Mana arise to rebuke us, saying, What do ye playing with with worlds and suns? It is a very serious thing that there be worlds and suns, and yet most withering is the laughter of Manayu Cheshire. And when he arises from resting at the last and laughs at us for playing with worlds and suns, we will hastily put them behind us, and there shall be worlds no more." So they literally are going to take the worlds and put them behind their bodies and hide them like children. Interesting. Oh, he actually went to some pretty in-depth stuff here, my dear scholars. Oh, the sayings of Kib, center of life in all the worlds. So this is literally kind of like a mini guide to his mythology. Interesting. Kib said, "I am Kib. I am none other than Kib. Kib is Kib. Kib is he, and no other. Believe." Kib is Kib. Kib is he, and no. Interesting little pattern there. Kib said, "When time was early, when time was very early, indeed, there was only Manayu Cheshire. Manayu Cheshire was before the beginning of the gods, and shall be after their going." And Kib said, "After the going of the gods, there will be no small worlds, nor big." Kib said a lot of things. "It will be lonely for Manayu Cheshire, because this is written, believe. For is it not written, or are you greater than Kib? Kib is Kib." So Kib is Kib, and Kib is Kib, and Kib is definitely Kib. Hmm. Concerning Shish, the destroyer of hours. Time is the hound of Shish. At Shish bidding do the hours run before him as he goeth upon his way. Never hath Shish stepped backward, nor ever hath he tarried. Never hath he relented to the things that once he knew, nor turned to them again. Before Shish is Kib, and behind him goeth Mun. Hmm. Very pleasant are all things before the face of Shish, but behind him they are withered and old. And Shish goeth ceasingly upon his way. Once the gods walked upon the earth as men walk, and spake with their mouths like men. That was in Worthnath Mavai. They walk not now. And Wornoth Mavai was a garden fairer than all the gardens upon earth. Kib was propitious, I think that's the word, and Mun raised not his hand against it, neither did Shish assail it with his hours. Wornoth Mavai layeth in a valley and looketh towards the south, and on the slopes of it Shish rested among the flowers when Shish was young. Thence Shish, it's very hard to pronounce this. Thence Shish went forth into the world to destroy its cities, and to provoke his hours to assail all things, and to batter against them with the rust and with the dust. Oh, that's dark. And Time, which is the hound of Shish, devoured all things, and Shish sent up the ivy and fostered weeds, and dust fell from the hand of Shish and covered stately things. Only the valley where Shish rested, when he and Time were young, did Shish not provoke his hours to assail. It is so hard to say the word Shish, this many times. Then he restrained his old hound, Time, and at its borders Mun withheld his footsteps. Warnoth Mavai still lieth looking towards the south, a garden among gardens, and still the flowers grow about its slopes, as they grew when the gods were young, and even the butterflies live in Warnoth Mavai still. For the minds of the gods relent towards their earliest memories, who relent not otherwise at all. Warnoth Mavai still lieth looking towards the south, but if thou shouldst ever find it, thou art then more fortunate than the gods, because they walk not in Warnoth Mavai now. This is just a literal tongue twister at this point. Once did the prophet think that he had discerned it in the distance beyond mountains, a garden exceeding fair with flowers, but Shish arose and pointed with his hand, and set his hound to pursue him, who hath followed ever since. I'm guessing that's Time. Time is the hound of the gods, but it hath been said of old that he will one day turn upon his masters and seek to slay the gods, excepting only Mana Yud Shashaya, whose dreams are the gods themselves, dreamed long ago. Wow, this apocalypse of theirs sounds incredibly busy. We have, let's go. We have Skull stopping his drumming, which wakes up Mana Yud Shashaya, who then turns and basically yells at the other gods for playing around and creating worlds and man and suns and such. And then Time is apparently going to turn on Shish and attack the other gods. And this is pretty busy. Mm. Oh my goodness, this is so much. All right. The sayings of Slid, whose soul is by the sea. Slid said, try and say that 10 times fast. Slid said, let no man pray to Mana Yud Shashaya, for who shall trouble Mana with mortal woes, or irk him with the sorrows of all the houses of earth? Nor let any sacrifice to Mana Yud Shashaya, for what glory shall he find in sacrifices or altars, who hath made the gods themselves? Pray to the small gods, who are the gods of doing, but Mana is the god of having done, the god of having done and of the resting. Pray to the small gods, and hope that they may hear thee. Yet what mercy should the small gods have, who themselves made death and pain? Or shall they restrain their old hound Time for thee? Slid is but a small god, yet Slid is Slid. It is written, and hath been said. What? I'm very confused now. Pray thou therefore to Slid, and forget not Slid, and it may be that Slid will not forget to send thee death when most thou needest it. And the people of the earth said, there is a melody upon the earth, as though 10,000 streams all sang together for their homes that they had forsaken in the hills. And Slid said, I am the Lord of gliding waters, and of foaming waters, and of still. I am the Lord of all the waters in the world, and all that lawn streams garner in the hills. But the soul of Slid is in the sea. Thither goes all that glides upon the earth, and the end of all the rivers in the sea. And Slid said, the hands of Slid hath toyed with cataracts, adown the valleys have trod the feet of Slid, and out of the lakes of the plains regard the eyes of Slid, but the soul of Slid is in the sea. Much homage hath Slid among the cities of men, and pleasant are the woodland paths, and the paths of the plains, and pleasant the high valleys where he danceth. I am tripping over my own words. Where he danceth in the hills. But Slid would be fettered neither by banks nor boundaries, so the soul of Slid is in the sea. The soul of Slid is in the sea of soul is, and Slid is Slid. Mm. Much homage hath Slid among the cities of men, and pleasant are the woodland paths, and the paths of the plains, and pleasant the high valleys where he danceth in the hills. But Slid would be fettered neither by banks nor boundaries, so that the soul of Slid is in the sea. For there may be Slid reposed beneath the sun and smile at the gods above him with all the smiles of Slid, and be a happier god than those who sway the worlds, whose work is life and death. There he sit and smile, or creep among the ships, or moan and sigh round islands in his great content, and the miser lord of wealth in gems and pearls beyond the telling of all fables. My eyes are crossing. Or there may be, when Slid would fain exult, throw up his great arms, or toss with many a fathom of wandering hair the mighty head of Slid, and cry aloud tumultuous dirges of shipwreck, and feel through all his being the crashing might of Slid, and sway the sea. Oh. Then doth the sea, like venturous legions on the eve of war that exult to acclaim their chief, gather its forces together from under all the wings, and roar, and follow, and sings and clash together to vanquish all things, and all at the biting of Slid, whose soul is in the sea. See, this is a thing you can tell what he's doing with the mythology, is he's using repetition. Because a lot of this sort of, how do I put it, mythology based in the idea of ancient holy ideas repeats. The stories repeat, the wording repeats, the sentences repeat. So we get the repeat of Slid whose soul is in the sea to make it sound more like what an ancient text would do. There is ease in the soul of Slid, and there be calms upon the sea. Also there be storms upon the sea, and troubles in the soul of Slid. For the gods have many moods, and Slid is in many places, for he sitteth in high Pegana. Also along the valleys walketh Slid, wherever water moveth or lieth still. But the voices and the cry of Slid are from the sea, and to whoever that cry hath ever come, he must needs follow, and follow, leaving all stable things, only to be always with Slid in all the moods of Slid, to find no rest until he reach the sea. With the cry of Slid before them, and the hills of their home behind, have gone 100,000 to the sea, over whose bones doth Slid lament with the voice of a god lamenting for his people. Even the streams from the inner lands have heard Slid's far-off cry, and altogether have forsaken lawns and trees to follow. Lawns, that is a weird term to use in a story like this. Trees to follow where Slid is gathering up his own, to rejoice where Slid rejoices, singing the chant of Slid, even as will at the last gather all the lives of the people about the feet of Mana Yu Cheshire. I'm going to take a short break, my dear scholars. That's too much alliteration there for my poor tongue. I will be right back. Okay, we're back, my dear scholars. Thank you for your patience. I hope you had a little bit of a snack or something. Oh, I had to, yeah, had to work with this. That was a little bit difficult on my tongue. All right. Next up, the deeds of Mun, Lord of all deaths between Pegana and the Rim. What is this, Discworld? Once as Mun went his way athwart the Worth and up and down in cities and across its plains, Mud came upon a man who was afraid when Mun said, I am Mun. I think I would be startled too if just this random god appeared before me. Well, I mean, technically, I am, you know, I'm on the level as an omniversal being. It's kind of it's kind of difficult to explain. Technically, okay, we're gonna take a pause on this to explain this. Technically, so I am higher than most of the beings who run universes, at least in terms of rank. But power wise, I'm below them in terms of abilities. It's really difficult. I mean, I have a flow chart for you somewhere. Universal, omniversal bureaucracy of deities is really difficult to explain. Anyway, but I could imagine any person would be frightened by a god just randomly walking up to them going, I am Mun. Probably in a loud voice, clap of thunder, that sort of thing. The usual. And Mun said, were the 40 million years before thy coming intolerable to thee? And Mun said, not less tolerable to thee shall be the 40 million years to come. Oh, he sounds like a delightful person. Then Mun made against him the sign of Mun, and the life of the man was fettered no longer with hands and feet. What does that mean? At the end of the flight of the arrow there is Mun, and in the houses and the cities of men. Mun walketh in all places at all times, but mostly he loves to walk in the dark, and still along the river mists, when the wind hath sank a little before night, meeteth with the morning upon the highway between Pegana and the worlds. Oh, he sounds delightful. I mean, walking among the midnight trees. Sometimes Mun entered the poor man's cottage. Mun also boweth very low before the king. Then do the lives of the poor man and of the king go forth among the worlds. And Mun said, many turnings hath the road that Kib hath given every man to tread upon the earth. Behind one of these turneth sitteth Mun. One day, as a man trod upon the road that Kib had given him to tread, he came suddenly upon Mun. And when Mun said, I am Mun, the man cried out, alas that I took this road, for had I gone by any other way than that had I not met with Mun. And Mun said, had it been possible for thee to go by any other way, then had the scheme of things been otherwise, and the gods have been other gods. When Manayushashaya forgets to rest and makes again new gods, it may be that they will send thee again into the worlds, and then thou may choose some other way, and so not meet with Mun. Yeah. And then Mun made the sign of Mun, and the life of that man went forth with yesterday's regrets and all old sorrows and forgotten things, whither Mun knoweth. And Mun went onward with his work to sunder life from flesh, and Mun came upon a man who became stricken with sorrow when he saw the shadow of Mun. But Mun said, when at the sign of Mun that thy life shall float away, there will also disappear thy sorrow at forsaking it. But the man cried out, O Mun, tarry for a little, and make not the sign of Mun against me now, for I have a family upon the earth with whom sorrow will remain, though mine should disappear because of the sign of Mun. And Mun said, with the gods it is always now, And before Shish hath banished many of the years, the sorrows of thy family, for these shall go the way of thine. And the man beheld Mun making the sign of Mun before his eyes, which beheld things no more. I think we will only read up to a certain point, my dear scholars, because, I can actually feel my voice giving out a little bit. So this will be a shorter stream for the night, I think. So we will go up to page 37, I think. I think that'll be a good one for us to stop at. So we will keep continuing, but I do have a limit to how much I can read tonight, unfortunately. Okay. The chant of the priests. This is the chant of the priests. The chant of the priests of Mun. This is the chant of the priests. All day long to Mun cry out the priests of Mun. I'm inadvertently turning into a song, I don't know why. And yet Mun hearkeneth not. What then shall avail the prayers of all the people? Rather bring gifts to the priests, gifts to the priests of Mun. So shall they cry louder unto Mun than ever was their wont. Actually, we'll stop here. Where was I? And it may be that Mun shall hear, not any longer than shall fall the shadow of Mun athwart the hopes of the people. Not any longer than shall the tread of Mun darken the dreams of the people. Not any longer shall the lives of the people be loosened because of Mun. Bring ye gifts to the priests, gifts to the priests of Mun. This is the chant of the priests, the chant of the priests of Mun. This is the chant of the priests. Yeah, it's very much as you could turn it into a song. Okay. The sayings of Limpan Tun, the god of mirth and melodious minstrels. I keep trying to find a good place to stop. And Limpan Tun said, the ways of the gods are strange. The flower groweth up, and the flower fadeth away. This may be very clever of the gods. Man groweth from his infancy, and in a while his dieth. They may be very clever too. This may be very clever too. But the gods play with a strange scheme. I will send jests into the world, and a little mirth. And while death seems to thee as far away as the purple rim of hills, or sorrow as far off, as rain in the blue days of summer, then pray to Limpan Tun. But when thou growest old, or ere thou diest, pray not to Limpan Tun, for thou becomest part of a scheme that he doth not understand. Go out into the starry night, and Limpan Tun will dance with thee who danced since the gods were young, the god of mirth and of melodious minstrels. Or offer up a jest to Limpan Tun. Only pray not in thy sorrow to Limpan Tun, for he saith of sorrow, I may be very clever it may be very clever the gods, but he does not understand. And Limpantu said, I am lesser than the gods. Pray therefore to the small gods, and not to Limpontun. Natheless, between Pegana and the earth flutter 10,000 prayers that beat their wings against the face of death, and never for one of them hath the hand of the striker been stayed, nor yet have tarried the feet of the relentless one. Utter thy prayer, it may accomplish where failed 10,000. Limpontun is lesser than the gods, and doth not understand. And Limpontun said, lest men grow weary down on the great worlds through gazing always at a changeless sky, I will paint my pictures in the sky, and I will paint them twice in every day for so long as days shall be. Once as the day ariseth, may see and rejoice, and ere day falleth under into the night, will I paint upon the blue again, lest men be sad. It is a little, said Limpontoon, it is a little even for a god to give some pleasure to men upon the worlds. And Limpontoon hath sworn that the pictures that he paints shall never be the same for so long as the days shall be, and thus he hath sworn by the oath of the gods of Pegana that the gods may never break, laying his hand upon the shoulders of each of the gods, and swearing by the light behind their eyes. Limpontoon hath lured a melody out of the stream and stolen its anthem from the forest. For him the wind hath cried in lonely places, and ocean sung its dirges. There is music for Limpontoon in the sounds of the moving of grass, and the voices of the people that lament, or in the cry of them that rejoice. In an inner mountain land where none hath come, he hath carved his organ pipes out of the mountains. And there, when the winds, his servants, come in from all the world, he maketh the melody of Limpontoon. But the sun, arising at night, go forth like a river, winding through all the world. And here and there amid the peoples of earth one heareth, and straightway all that hath voice to sing crieth aloud in music to his soul. Or sometimes walking through the dusk with steps unheard by men, in a form unseen by the people, Limpontoon goeth abroad, and standing behind the minstrels in cities of song, waveth, waveth his hands above them to and fro, and the minstrels bend to their work, and the voice of the music ariseth, and mirth and melody abound in that city of song, and no one seeth Limpontoon as he standeth behind the minstrels. But through the mists towards morning, in the dark when the minstrels sleep and mirth and melody have sunk to rest, Limpontoon goeth back again to his mountain land. I think we'll read one more very short one, and then we will stop for the evening, my dear scholars. Of Johanneth Lahai, the god of little dreams and fancies. Lohanneth Lahai is the god of little dreams and fancies. All night he sendeth little dreams out of Pegana to please the people of earth. He sendeth little dreams to the poor man and to the king. He is so busy to send his dreams to all before the night be ended that oft he forgetteth which be the poor man and which be king. To whom Loharneth Lahai cometh not with little dreams and sleep, he must endure all night the laughter of the gods, with highest mockery in Pegana. All night long Loneth Lahai giveth peace to cities, until the dawn hour, and the departing of Loneth Lahai, when it is time for the gods to play with men again. Whether the dreams and the fancies of Loneth Lahai be false, and the things that are done in the day be real, or the things that are done in the day be false, and the dreams and the fancies of Loneth Lahai be true, none knoweth, saving only Mana Yud Shushai, Mana Yud Shushai, who hath not spoken. And we will stop there, my dear scholars. I know this has been a short one, but this is a very difficult book to read. Lord Dunsany, as you can tell, went to a lot of trouble in describing each and every little spirit and deity and coming up with his own school of how he believed the worship of these beings would be, trying to describe every little way that nature itself would be formed in this world of Pegana. And he wrote a lot on it. It was the Gods of Pegana was just the beginning of his writings on it. Um, he wrote a whole whole group. Time and the Gods was another one that he wrote. In the Land of Time also dealt with it, and it was just this whole mythology that he wrote, and it's very much been forgotten, at least in terms of other writings. And in fact, some of his other works were better well known. For instance, the what was it? The oh my goodness, I am blanking on the name. I think it was the daughter of the King of Elfland, which was one of his most famous books. Got turned into a rock opera of all things. But yes, in many ways, these writings preview what J.R.R. Tolkien would later do. In some ways, with much more detail in the Silmarillion and his world. You can see little influences Lord Dunsany had on other fantasy writers later on. And in many ways, he was the one who was one of them who really started what we know today as world building. Um, but yes, I digress. For now, my dear scholars, it's time for us to go. And I say once again unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Till we meet each other again in the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.